The oil and gas industry, the home of innovation, cutting-edge technology, and the extraordinary people who make it all happen. Together, we're powering the world. Here are the stories of business builders who are leading the way in the energy sector. This is Zebra Marketing Solutions Oil and Gas Business Builders Podcast, where we explore the real experiences of today's leaders in business growth with key takeaways to start implementing right now in our own companies. And now here is your host, Laura Camrath.
Hello, Alan. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Welcome all of our guests to the Oil and Gas Business Builders podcast. We have with us here today, Alan Gilmer. And Alan is, he grew a company called Drillinginfo that is now called Enverus, and has done some really super interesting things. And so I'm going to read you quickly Alan's bio so you have a background on him and his experience. Alan is the founder of Enverus, formerly Drillinginfo, the energy industry's leading data software and insights company. Today, Enverus's innovative technologies empower more than 5,000 customers across 50 countries. And Enverus has more than 1,000 employees in offices across the globe. Prior to founding Enverus, Alan was an independent oil and gas producer and entrepreneur of 3 successful oil and gas companies that have sourced more than 100 million barrels of oil. In addition to leading Enverus for 16 years, Alan is the immediate past chairman of the Texas Independent Producers and Royalty Owners, or TIPRO, past Texas chair and national board member of the DOE's Petroleum Technology Transfer Council, or PTTC, and member of the development board of the University of Texas at El Paso, or UTEP, advisory board of UTEP's College of Science, Colorado School of Mines Petroleum Engineering Advisory Board member, and several other nonprofit organizations. He was selected at UTEP's Distinguished Alumni, UTEP's Distinguished Alumni in 2017. Austin Business Journal's Large Company CEO of the Year in 2014. Top 7 Upstream Influencers in 2014, Texas Monthly's Texas Outstanding Geoscientist in 2012, Ian Wise Entrepreneur of the Year in Central Texas in 2012, and Top 100 Energy Influencers in 2011. Alan is also a member of the Texas Business Leadership Council, a statewide network of CEOs and senior business executives who advance a long-term vision of a prosperous Texas and a globally competitive business environment. He received a BA in Geology from Rice University in 1984 and an MS in Geology from UTEP in 1987. Awesome. Very impressive background, Alan. So,
Gosh, I think we're done now. So, but
and we're both
what
right.
It's what happens when you hang around too when you hang around too long. You just get all sorts of stuff stick to you.
And people ask you to serve, and you say yes. That's awesome. Yeah. So I hear that you guys have some big news over at Enverus. Would you care to share your big news with us?
Yeah. Yesterday, Hellman and Friedman, a pretty amazing oil or essentially private equity firm out of San Francisco, acquired a controlling interest in Enverus, and at a valuation that was several $1 billion. So it was it gave a lot of opportunity for a reboot to a lot of the management team, and a great day for a lot of employees yesterday. So wow. They were able to take some money home. So it's kind of a real way of doing what I did a few years ago when we did our first private equity deal, and we had a happy hour, and I handed out $200,000 in cash. I added $1,000 a person just to make sure everybody shared the wealth, and now we're doing it systematically, which is much better. And and making a lot more money. So we have a new crop of what here in Austin, we always had the Drillionaires, and what I'm really proud of here as being one of the largest private companies in Austin is now we're creating the Drillionaires. So just really proud of every one of them.
Yeah, that's really exciting news. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Awesome. So tell me a little bit about you and Drillinginfo in the early days. I was, I guess, started into the oil industry in 2004. And when I went into the business side, I remember Drillinginfo, and I always thought you guys had really cutting edge marketing. It was always sort of, you guys were pushing the envelope more than it seemed like a lot of companies in the industry were, in terms of really making use of social marketing and social media. And tell me a little bit about the company and how you guys got started, and
Sure.
and that.
Well, at the time, no one in the oil business was in Austin, Texas. They used to have a saying about being in the oil business in Austin, Texas. It was like owning a jet. You could rationalize it, you just couldn't justify it. I was here running, helping with a research program at the University of Texas that we were doing a bunch of multi-component seismology around. And I had a friend of mine who was a consulting geologist, and another friend who was from Austin who had a small oil company here. And my friend, the consulting Mark Niblink, we would get together for beers every so often, and just kind of, those few of us that were in this tiny little fraternity of oil and gas folks in Austin. And one day we were having beers, and Mark was like, I had this great idea about putting permits on the internet. And I said, well, that sounds like a bad idea, actually. Mark, doesn't sound like we can really protect that very well. And I don't know what you could sell that for, but we played around with it. And the idea was, then it really kind of culminated in a business plan that I still, I probably won't read it again, but I used to read it every year. I think I have it memorized now, but about what we could do if we built a network, the whole concept of a network, and what might come about out of building, a network of people in the oil and gas industry. Because, the reason that I love the oil and gas industry is it's really been the one industry that has resisted roll up. And there's a reason for that. I mean, companies certainly get acquired by bigger companies and bigger assets. But then what always happens is the bigger companies then divest 80% of their properties, because it's the old 80-20 rule that's always been the case. 20% of your properties provide 80% of your value. And everybody is always high grading with regards to that which they have. And there's always the next generation to come in there. And, the private equity groups in oil and gas made that possible, being able to come in there and buy and fund the right management teams to take the properties that were the fruit was too high up in the tree for them to be able to, for the guys that had acquired those other companies. And so there was always this kind of ongoing churn. And even with small producing wells, I mean, a big company cannot integrate their overhead into a 3 barrel a day well. Whereas a mom and pop living in the area certainly can go out there and make decent, good livings out of operating a few 3 or 4 barrel a day wells. And there's a beauty to that. And I don't think I really understood it clearly until I was in the business and realized that the oil business looks far more like what I think most Americans think of, kind of what industries look like, from mom and pops to big guys, than any other industry. Every other industry is very, very much consolidated towards, the mass, towards very, very few companies that control everything. Mm-hmm. And the oil business is not like that. It's and if big oil was honest enough to admit it, they would realize that that it's been the small companies that have really paved the way for their success, for being able to go from small to big, but also for being able to go out there and try the new things and to be the experimenters, to go out there and do stuff that they can all then fast follow and be able to apply it at scale. And that's why I love the business and always have. You don't have to be a billionaire to be an oil man. You have to have an idea, and you got to be a billionaire to be to be a wind man, or you got to be a billionaire to be a solar man. You don't have to be a billionaire to actually be an oil man, or actually today oil person.
Yeah.
Because there's plenty of amazing CEOs that are females in our business today, which is very different than when I started.
Yeah. Awesome. So once you got started in the business, you started building the business, how did you guys grow it? And, what were you guys doing? Or did you feel like you were doing anything different than other people were doing?
We had no idea what we were doing, to be honest with you. Between the, when we started, we had, Mark and I started it. Then we brought in another partner, Bill Fowler, who was a landman by background, but an independent producer as well. And then we brought in Martin Payne, who is a drilling engineer and an independent producer. So all of us had been independent producers, and we all came from the business from various different directions. And so we kind of had it covered. And between us all, we had a Rolodex of a couple thousand people, right? So we originally just started calling up our people in our Rolodex and saying, "Hey, we want to show you this, and can we buy and show it to you?" And Martin and I were on the road, 80% of the time that first year, just demoing. And our when we went in there and demoed what we were showing, we had 80% of the people bought it, because even if they hated it, it was the whole concept was. They said, I hate this. I don't want people knowing as much about me or these other people, but I got to have it now because I got to know what the other people are doing. So, so it was either love or hate, but it was nothing in between. And even if you hated it, you had to have it. So, and I remember I gave a talk one time up in the Panhandle, and there was this one prominent operator up at the top of the Panhandle, and he when I was in the business, he was always in the middle of all my deals. When I shot 3D surveys for working interest in those things, but he was the guy that every landowner knew, and they would call him up and lease something to him so that he was guaranteed to be in the middle of every deal you did. So I decided as a little gig to say, how much is so-and-so worth at the talk? And he had his team there, and they had a table there, and everybody just started cracking up as I went through the whole talk. He got up and left. And so, it was, I'd say we pushed some envelopes for sure. It was but it was, I had this concept, and I to this day, I mean, it's people do business with people, and I always thought it was a huge mistake for small companies to try to pretend like they're big companies. We are. I can't tell you how many oil field service companies were two guys in a desk. They were trying to pretend like they were Schlumberger. And the reality is that people have a loyalty to people, and that was very important to me, and that was why it's always been very important to me who we hired at Drillinginfo, and today who we hired in Enverus, because it's the fundamental integrity of those people that's the most important thing you have, and the relationships that you have with the people.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think that's across the board. It's always one of the most important things is to keep people at the center of everything you do, because, at the end of the day, even if you're serving a lot of people, you know, those are individuals, and that's the heart of, I think, when you lose track of the people and what you're doing for them, it just I think that's when you can really sort of go off the rails, or get derailed from having a purpose in it as well, because it's the people that you're serving that um
Yeah, you're having,
powerful.
every business is a business is fulfilling a purpose, and it's, we all live a life of purpose, right? And so, or we should, and it's not about it, and that purpose isn't making money. The primary purpose of everything is not to go make money. Money is the methodology by which we exchange stuff,
Hmm.
and we exchange things for more than it costs us to make, because then that makes it sustainable. And that
Yeah.
means we continue to go do that and expand what we're trying to go do. But if you're ever starting a business purely and solely for the purpose of making money, I guarantee you're going to fail.
Yeah.
You have to have a concept of how you're trying to go out there and make other people's lives easier and better. And you need to be bought into that. And you need to be able to be testing that all the time to make sure that that is true, so that you can so that what you're providing is worth enough for people to pay for it being provided to them.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's also the rewarding factor of knowing that you're helping people, and um you know people people I think inherently want to help other people. And
Absolutely.
and so when you can get your team around a purpose, and helping people, and everybody is kind of on board with that purpose, I think you can have a stronger company. Your customers will be more loyal. Just it seems like definitely a good way to go.
Well, that's why I really do think that the amalgamation of people for commercial reason, which we call companies today, is as a force of good, is completely there seems to be a complete devoid of understanding of the massive societal good that they provide.
Yeah.
And my friend Mark and I, when we started Drilling Info, we had nothing. We were literally doing it on our living room tables. I had to borrow money to pay rent.
Hmm.
And fast forward, that result has created hundreds, maybe 100, hundreds probably, that have made $1 million or more. And that's not including the customers. The customers themselves have all made a vast multiple of what they've spent with us, with regards to a value, with regards to being able to do that. And no one feels like they were a benefit of charity on any of this stuff. So you have all the benefits of charity without anybody having the baggage of charity, that somehow that they got something that they didn't deserve, and that and try to create some sort of framework in which they really did deserve. You
Yeah.
know, and we all know what it feels like. When I was a kid, when I was in college, my dad gave me $500 a month that I was supposed to live at Rice University to go,
Mhm.
beer, and it bought plenty of beer at Valhalla for sure. But at the end of the day, I became dependent on that $500 a month, and then I started kind of, thinking it was my due. I was owed that, and that was never owed any of that stuff. It was my parents were just trying to make my life easier, and that just, it was just, I know exactly what it feels like, and to be a recipient of grace, and and we just, as human beings, we're not wired to appreciate it.
Yeah.
Wired to actually be self-sufficient.
Yeah. Mm. So so you guys have changed the name of the company to Enverus. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And the company now?
Well, it's I tell people, I mean, Drilling Info became like Kleenex, right? Everybody knew the name. And, and information about drilling was, when we first started the company, we weren't even really covering information about drilling. So it was kind of a ridiculous name to begin with. But then as time went on and we started covering more and more types of activities and things, both in and out of upstream oil and gas. And then as we moved into downstream and as we started moving into power and as we started moving into business automation and trading and risk, and uh, we found that, it's like Drilling Info, it had a really great connotation amongst our core clients, which was the upstream oil and gas. And it had a neutral to negative connotation amongst some of our other clients. It's like some of our power, our energy and power traders, they didn't have any great affinity to the oil and gas industry. And then in some cases they were thinking, well, what is going on here? What is this brand affinity in Europe? Some of the power guys over there. And so it kind of predicated, once our client base expanded to that point in which we started seeing, it was never really pushed back, but it was a quizzicalness as to our name when we were trying to go in there. And then what kind of broke the camel's back was our energy analysts, I think, are the best in the planet. They're really good. And all of a sudden there was a couple of periodicals that would question the veracity of our energy analysts because they were clearly in the bag of oil and gas. And I was like, come on, because we were Drilling Info and therefore, had some sort of loyalty to that part. And, I do think that, that we're rational. We're rational here. We recognize the fact that there is nothing that's going to replace oil and gas tomorrow. We're also attuned to the fact that all of us are going to have to get we measure what we treasure, and that emissions are going to have to be controlled, and that we have to minimize our impact on the surface and on the environment. That's just, but everybody knows that.
Yeah.
But I think that was some of the reasons why it was to go out and create Enverus. It was and the Enverus was, the first part was energy, the EN from energy. The Ver is from veritas, and so truth or insight. And then us was just, it's really what it meant. It's all of us. We there isn't a distinction of us versus them in this world in terms of energy. It is all of us. We're all consumers, and we're all creators of energy. And we thought it was a great name in which to kind of expand the brand, so to speak.
That's cool. That's a great name.
Well, thank you.
I like it.
Once you hear the explanation.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. So tell me a little bit about you and what you're up to these days and where you see yourself continuing on in the future.
Well, I still participate in drilling wells, a small non-operated working interest, and with friends, and and I don't foresee myself not doing that in the future because, unfortunately, it is an addiction, and it's a bad one. At least I don't have my teeth for it because. And then I'm an advisor to Enverus, and it's my baby, and I will continue to be so, and to continue to be a shareholder in the company. So, I've been producing movies and TV shows lately. So
Really?
that's been pretty interesting.
That is interesting.
Yes,
So How did
A
you
lot of
end
years
up?
to drill wells, I can tell you that.
Oh yeah. How did you end up getting involved with that?
Well, my wife and I had executive produced a couple of documentaries, and one that was a regional documentary that got a lot of notice at South by Southwest, won the audience favorite award, and it was about a local music location here
Mhm.
called South Pub, and then we helped executive produce a movie about Quentin Tarantino's first 8 movies, told from the point of view of the actors and the people that were on set at the time that they were making them, and what it
Mm.
was like to work with Quentin Tarantino and his evolution as a director. And
Wow.
it was called QT8, and that showed at Cannes Film Festival. That was fun to go over to Cannes to see that, and that was the first time Quentin Tarantino told our director, said, the whole world is here to see my movie, and the only movie I want to see is yours. So it was,
Mm.
it turned out that he really liked it, it might be a bit of a hagiography, but it was. We did cover the Harvey Weinstein issues and the issues of the girl getting hurt, and how he dealt with it. But it was it's on Netflix. I invite anybody to go see it. It's fun to watch. And then what happened is a guy that works for Enverus today. He's been with us for several years. His name is Andy Godbold in Houston, Texas, and he is in our sales group. A lot of people I know that work with Enverus probably know him. His brother has been in Hollywood for 20 years. He was a graduate of St. Thomas in Houston, and then went to Texas A&M. And he has been a hardworking guy and makes a decent living at it, playing principally bad guys. So on the big movies, he's bad guy number 3, and on the small movies, he's bad guy with a name. And like on Westworld, he was one of the security officers who gets seduced by a robot and neck broken. He gets killed in nearly everything. So he's died a lot, but we made a movie to kind of give an opportunity for him to highlight his acting chops, and so he's the hero of this movie.
Awesome.
And we were able to surround him with some interesting people. Laura Flynn Boyle, it was her first movie in 7 years, and she's the first time to try to not play an ingenue. She's playing a middle-aged woman, and Stephen Lang, the bad guy in Avatar. He took the role because it was the first time he's been, Ike Clanton. He's been, Jeb Stewart in Gods and Generals. He's always a tough guy, and he's never once had the opportunity to be a romantic lead. And so he took that to be able to show the world that he could do that. And then we got Bruce Dern in it. And the reason I brought Bruce Dern in there is Laura Dern's dad for the younger folks. But Dern was the guy who killed John Wayne the first time in a Western movie. It's the Cowboys. And for me, it was really important because when I was 12 years old and my brother was 8, my dad took my little brother's friends on his birthday party to the Plaza Theater in El Paso, Texas, to watch the Cowboys. And at the end of the Cowboys, he had 15 hysterical, traumatized little boys who were crying because they watched God get killed by this sniveling coward on the screen. And my dad had to take all these kids home and apologize profusely to their parents for traumatizing their little boys. And
no.
So this was my opportunity to get back at Bruce Dern.
That's awesome. That's really interesting. I'm gonna have to check out Netflix and look for that documentary. So do you have any advice for our listeners in terms of business growth right now, or the environment we're in right now, or with all of your experience, do you have anything in particular that you would tell people growing businesses in the oil and gas industry?
Yeah, I'd say that it's really hard to come in to an industry, especially the oil and gas industry, if you're not in it, and figure out something to sell to it. You have to, there's a real benefit to actually getting your hands dirty doing something so that you can start looking around for the things that aren't being done very well. And then to be able to go out there and figure out a service or a product that you can sell into that business. And once you do that, then you have to identify who are the, I think it's really important that that the market is not just the biggest players on the planet. There's a reason why the software business in oil and gas was never really huge, relatively speaking. And that was because the top-down model. And that was somebody had an idea, they took it to a couple of majors, and a major would if they were lucky, agree to fund the development, and the development would be strongly focused around what that particular company needed or wanted. And oftentimes you end up chasing your tail. You get the next contract, and I will tell you that every single time that happens, you are spending more money than it's, your client is paying less for custom development than if they were just paying for custom development. And you're paying it from your cycle times. You think of it as helping you develop a product, but at the end of the day, that product is now very, very customized to that one particular client. And that next client is going to want that similar level of customization. And then you can never kind of wind your way out of it. And so be very careful about that. Be very careful about making sure that you have a go-to-market strategy in which you have something that can be sold as is, and that you don't have to go out there and customize it in a lot of ways, shapes, or form in order to fit into that. Because, and every one of the bigger companies has taken advantage of that customization, and that's not software or what have you. And just make sure it's just a plug and play thing that they can go do. And then when you hear the word no, understand that there are other avenues in which to hear the word yes. And there's lots of budgets, and some of the things that are really important is to really understand where their budgets. What are the budgets? What are the things that are really important to them right now, and what do they have budget for? Trying to go get something from a G&A budget, for instance, in which every penny is held on to very tightly and looked at, and compared to some other budget in which it's supporting something else. I've always liked being a relatively inexpensive part of a huge budget, in which you're now just being carried along with things. Nobody's paying any attention to you, because they have a huge capital program in which you're a fraction of that, and going forward. And so, pay attention to those budgets, and don't try to, and be flexible with regards to how you sell in those sides. Be aware of there are easy dollars and there are infinitely hard dollars, and don't spend time trying to get infinitely hard dollars. And then the other aspect about it is when you start taking investors in, there is a dilution, and dilution can be good or it can be bad. If you're just getting money, that is the worst kind of dilution. If you're getting money and help with a Rolodex, or help with your government, with your whole operation side, then it can be hugely accretive to you. It might be equity dilutive in terms of the overall, but your value is going to be hugely accretive. And I think when we spent the first 12 years without any private equity, and then we spent the last 8 years in private equity. And private equity brought to the table for us an amazing amount of value. Mm-hmm. And I wish, at this point, I wish that I hadn't actively resisted private equity for as long as I did.
Mhm. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. Do you have any resources or thought leaders that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Yeah, I think today is a great, great moment in time to have some thought leaders to follow. And the ones that I do, there's a guy named at the Manhattan Institute. His name is Mark P. Mills, and I pay attention to everything that he says. And I've invited him to a few of our conferences, and he's always just knocked it out of the park because he knows everything. I mean, it's really amazing. I think Alex Epstein is a great ambassador for our industry, and he comes from a point of view of this. It's just, I think, unassailable. The other one is Scott Tinker here at University of Texas at Austin, and he runs the Switch Alliance. And if you don't know about Switch, you should look it up. Scott is truly an expert on energy and its uses and its abilities to lift people out of poverty off the planet. And he's made a couple of really great movies, and he's built a great online platform, and he's getting this education into the schools and in a way that I didn't think was possible. But those are all folks that I pay a lot of attention to, and will continue to do so. And I have to say that your local, state, independent oil organizations, like, I had the honor of being the chairman of TIPRO, and every state's got the one that focuses on the small guys, and that they are always underfunded, and they are the most important people. They actually legislatures listen to them more than they listen. Those are the mom and pops that live out in the district. And they're the ones that use the oil and gas so much, and they're not the ones that have the professional government affairs folks in the offices all the time. And I would really encourage everybody to get involved with that cohort of folks.
Awesome. Well, I will check out those thought leaders. Thanks for that, Alan. And thank you very much for being on the show and giving us some advice and background on your company and yourself. Have really enjoyed having you on, and I'm sure our listeners have too. So I look forward to keeping in touch. And to all of our listeners, please tune in for the next episode. And I look forward to seeing you all next time. Thanks, Alan.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Zebra Marketing Solutions Oil and Gas Business Builders podcast. Join our Oil and Gas Business Builders groups on LinkedIn and Facebook, and see our videos on YouTube and on ogbbmedia.com. Visit zmsenergymarketing.com to learn more about how we can help you and your business design and implement a marketing strategy to retain and attract customers, grow revenues, and gain market share. Join us on the next episode for more great takeaways from business builders who are leading the way in the energy sector.